friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of the show. And today you guys were on episode 241, Being Real About Drugs. I'm so excited. My babe Darrian is back on the show and we're having a fun, light conversation and by no means saying do drugs by any stretch of the length. So if you're not of age, I don't know why you're here to begin with, but we're going to be talking about our experiences growing up with drugs and just the landscape of what it looked like pharmaceutically, recreationally, growing up, as elder and younger millennial versus what we're seeing now and our experiences with becoming addicts and becoming sober and just the difference in our lives and what that means now to us. So super excited for you guys to listen to this episode. But before we get on, I just want to remind you, if you are listening on Spotify, Apple, or Rumble, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and leave me a little review if your girl's feeling so kind. A couple 5-star review, bring me back up there if you don't mind. And if you're looking for me on social media this year, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok at the Be Real Babe or the Be Real Babe podcast. If you want to reach out to get your own episode, I have about 3 or 4 left in the season for January, so you can get at me at theberealbabe@hotmail.com. Now guys, let's jump over to this episode and have a little bit more of a light, laughing, kind of like you guys are idiots type of episode. Let's go. All right, babes, it's time to get on to the show. And with me today, I have a very special returning guest. She's one of my favorite human beings, one of my besties, Darrian. Hey babe, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to see you. Any moment we can have, I love to have you on. So thank you for joining me tonight, talking about a whole new topic that we haven't really talked about yet, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yes.
Because we both have grown up in a small town. We both have had our party phases, and now we're in our more chilling era. So I feel like it's fun to kind of go back and see the growth and all that kind of stuff. So as we will probably mention, this is our second take. But as we were kind of talking about how different life is for us growing up with even just talking about drugs in general, right? Like recreational, pharmaceutical, it's super different than what it is now, how accessible it is, how much we talk about it. I mean, the mainstream media is talking about pharmaceuticals all the time. You've got social media constantly talking about drugs, movies, much music and all that. But there was a time when we were growing up that wasn't really in our face. So going back to like when you were younger, when did drugs or pharmaceuticals and all that, when did that become something in your awareness? Do you remember?
Yeah. So I knew my mom smoked pot, but I couldn't conceptualize what pot was because she also smoked cigarettes. So in my mind, they were just a different form of cigarette. And I was like pretty anti-drugs until I started doing them. So I was like kind of unaware, but I grew up around it in like a safe way.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think a lot of us experience that, you got put to bed and then your parents hung out after, because my mom was really young and I went back and forth. So I had my real dad, my biological dad, and then I was with my grandparents who didn't do drugs, didn't party or anything like that. And then my parents got to kind of have their weekends off to do those things because they were young parents. But I think for the most part, we remember going over to a friend's house and you go to bed and your parents would kind of still party, but there wasn't not anything dangerous, like you said, not that I remember anyways. We grew up in small towns, right? So going back to that, I grew up in Port Alberta, for those that maybe don't know. It's a small town on the Vancouver Island, which is British Columbia, on the west coast, as west coast as you could be. And I thought I was small town. Darrian's gonna beat me here, but I grew up with in a town with 18 to 20K. And Darrian, yourself, if those haven't heard our episodes in the past.
Yeah, if you haven't listened before, I'm from Fernie, and not many people know where that is. It's a very small town, but it's 4,000 or 5,000 people. There's nothing there but partying.
Yeah, right? Because, like, what else do you do? And I feel like that's what my life was kind of in Alberta too. But small towns, like, what else do you do, right? There's pit parties or your teenagers, you do all those things. But I was kind of the same way. Like, I grew up with people smoking weed and cigarettes around me. And like you, I didn't really know a difference at first. It was like, oh, it was like maybe a menthol cigarette kind of like, or a cigar, right? Like, I didn't think about it as like drugs like I would hear like about like cocaine or whatever, but that really wasn't in my life when my parents partied. It was when fortunately when I was off and the other with the other person, right? So I didn't really get to see that lifestyle, but I knew about like drinking and all that. And then obviously as we grow up and on high school, junior high school, that's when I started smoking weed. I before I know said you were 18, but I started smoking weed in junior high school. And to be honest, I don't even know how it really came into my life. I think I knew that my dad, my biological father, was smoking it, but like all my friends were starting to get into it. What was like, and I think I was like, I want to say like grade 7 because I got suspended in grade 9 for smoking it. So yeah, we'll get to that story. But in junior high school, because you're in a school with like all ages, right?
Yeah, I went to a private school and like the kids at the private school were very straight-laced and I hung out with the kids from like the public school. But even still, once all my friends started smoking weed, I was still too nervous. Like my dad was really strict about it. He's like, if you come home high, I'll straight up kill you. Um, and so I was like, ooh, and I almost like kind of looked down on my friends in high school. I was like, you guys are ridiculous. Do you remember salvia? Do you remember
Yes,
how
I
you
do.
could just buy salvia at stores for a
Yes,
while?
I do. Yes.
I was terrified because I thought salvia and weed were the same thing. And one
Oh,
of my
like a sativa.
girlfriends, yeah, like one of my girlfriends smoked salvia at the high school field when we were in grade like 9, and she was fucked out of her tree. And I was like, I never ever want to do that. So I stayed away from it till I was 18.
I mean, that's good. That's probably better for your brain. I mean, I don't think I was crazy young, so probably like 15, 16. And I mean, I don't think I smoked it not like I did now. It was like on the weekends, like instead of drinking. And then I remember like getting in great because like how it was for me growing up, we had a bunch of like Port Alberni's small, but there was different elementary schools. There was 3 different junior high schools, and then everyone went together in the high school. And so I was in a little tiny French community, kind of French immersion community with a little elementary, and then we went into different junior highs, and where you lived depended on where you went. So some people went to different junior high schools, and then we mixed with some people from other different elementary schools. So now there's new people in the mix. Even though I was still French immersion, all my classes were the same, but now all of a sudden there's these new English kids around me. And yeah, so I was smoking cigarettes because my parents smoked, all of them. Everyone smoked cigs. So I was smoking cigs. It was cool. So everyone's smoking ciggies. I was smoking ciggies. And that's probably like kind of where the weed came in because we're in the smoker's pit, hanging out down there, being like bad at. Oh my God. My parents smoked. So I think that they never really could smell it. So I think I kind of had an edge there. But we were talking last time before we reset here about partying in high school. Like for me, there was like some kids that did mushrooms and we smoked weed and we drank, but there was no like cocaine. There wasn't really like meth, crack, like none of that was really in it. That was like hardcore, maybe parents were on the street kind of situation. Is that what was like for you two growing up as well? It was just like weed and booze pretty much?
Weed and booze, like high school parties, everybody was smoking joints. Actually, I look back and like I think because vapes weren't a thing, everybody smoked cigarettes. Like I smoked cigarettes before I smoked weed. It was like getting drunk and smoking packs of Canadian classics was like the whole high school. But no, I don't remember anyone in my high school doing crack, meth. Like I don't know anyone in my hometown who did crack ever.
Mm-mm,
Like, I'm
mm-mm.
sure they did, but I didn't know about it.
No, and I think even ecstasy for us, like when I turned of age, that's when it started like hitting my friend group kind of. And I remember, and we'll get into that the first time doing E in our 20s and whatnot, but it was never really more than that. Like and maybe some pharmaceuticals, like minorly, but it was never really like that. And I just think we talked about this before, like, is it social media? Is it movies, Hollywood? Like, where did this come from? Where now you're hearing kids overdosing on opioids and all that. Like that was just not, like I said, unless it was extreme cases, a teenage thing in my experience growing up. And I just feel so sad for kids these days that that's even something on the fucking plate. I mean, we get into our 20s, we'll talk about that when you become legal ages and you start partying in Vancouver, which we both have some experience on. But yeah, I just, even drinking was too much for me. I just thought, I don't like being this out of control. What were you like? So if you didn't smoke weed, what was like alcohol, or were you a good kid? Were you straight and narrow till you're 18? Okay.
No,
Well, tell us a little bit about that then. What was your drug of choice?
it was booze, and I remember from the time I started drinking, we had my friend's older brother buy us a Mickey when we were 15, and I got shit-faced on this Mickey of Malibu. And from there, it became very obvious to people in my life that I didn't have an off switch with alcohol. I would have to be the drunkest one at the party. And I look back and I had so many embarrassing nights in high school, like embarrassing nights, because I would get like unfortunately sloppy drunk like every time we drank. I would drink the whole Mickey, or like be doing shots, like pouring straight liquor down a beer bong. And so it it was like a big issue for me. And I remember one time my friend's mom had to pick us up from a party, and she's like, Darren, you need to like really assess your relationship with alcohol. And at this time I was 16 years old. And she was like, because you're always the one who has to get the drunkest at the party, and like, how many times have I picked you up and you can barely stand up? And I was like, this is a solid point. I didn't listen, but it was a
No, of
solid
course not.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure you put that, and I'm sure it kind of pissed you off, or you put it like in your back pocket, right? And I bet you, when you came to that revelation to like slow that down or change the intention of drinking, I'm sure that was in the back of your head being like, ah, fuck. Because honestly, we all have those moments when someone says something, you're like, I don't believe it. And then you come to that realization, you're like, fuck, they're right. Usually, like, like if your mom says something for years and you're like, damn it, now she's right. But it's good for her for saying that. But also at the same time, too, I always wonder, like, I know I always wanted that mom, like that would be like was the party mom, but my mom was not, and I'm so glad that she wasn't, and she was very strict. And even though I did some things, I wasn't nearly as bad as I could have been for sure had she not been like put the boundaries on how I needed to be. Because if I was just left to my own devices, I know I'd be in a way worse off. So I remember being so mad that my mom wouldn't let me go out like later than 11 or midnight. And in like grade 12, it was like midnight. And I was like, I'm pretty much an adult and I have my own boyfriend. And she let me stay the night at his house and stuff. But, like thinking back to it, like we did such stupid shit. Like even just drinking, we'd like drink and drive up the mountain at like 17, 18 at like 3 in the morning. Like, or not 3 in the morning, but like midnight. And they'd go out till like 3 in the morning. Be dropped off. But if I stayed at his house, we would stay out till like 2, 3 in the morning. Right. And now I think back to it, I'm like, thank you for giving me some structure, because even within that structure, I did stupid shit. I didn't put
It's
on
so
Snapchat
funny.
though. I didn't put on Snapchat though.
I am every day I'm grateful there was no Snapchat when I was in high school. It's funny that you bring up the drinking and driving on a back road thing, because I think that's such a small town thing, and I am so shocked more of us didn't die. Like I can remember being at bush parties getting wasted hammered, and then just driving around like mountain edges, and, like music bumping, like yeah, everything's
So
good. And
cool.
like
Yeah. Too many
now I'm
people.
like, even if I sniff a glass of wine, I'm like, I have to call a cab. I have to call a
Yes.
cab. Like,
And we want to talk about your inability to take a left turn.
yeah, if I ever drive drunk, you guys, like someone will get injured because I can barely drive sober. So like, it's not a road I'm willing to go down.
Right. And that's what I mean. It's so nice to look back at that stark difference and be like, wow, that's just not. I mean, I was never the one that would really drink and drive ever because I was not a good drunk. I don't think I would be the same thing like you because I just got drunk really easy. And so I got really scared. And I was really worried. I think I'm not trying to be this way, but I think it's because my dad was an alcoholic and he would do stupid shit with me in the car. So I think I kind of always felt like I couldn't get that drunk because I just didn't trust my surroundings to get that drunk. And I think maybe you got that drunk because you just wanted to escape maybe your surroundings or reality at the time. Is that fair to say? Like,
Oh yeah. And my mom had like been gone for a bit at this point. She wasn't in my life for a period of time. And so I was with my dad living full time, and he was so strict. Like I had to hide everything from him. So as soon as I would be able to like get to a sleepover where someone's mom would go let us drink, I was like, I have to get like weeks worth of everybody else's drinking into this one night. I actually think my dad did me a disservice by being that strict. Like, I think he should have maybe not let me drink, but just like with your mom, like provide a little bit of structure, like ask me where I'm going, because I put myself in far more dangerous situations because I couldn't tell him where I was going. So then he thought I was somewhere and I was not there and I was hammered.
yeah. And see, that was where I was kind of like tricky because once my mom figured out, let's say where the bad parents were to stay, then I would find new ones that she knew nothing about, and then I'd go hang out with them, and then their parents would be like, they didn't give a shit if they went in and out. I'm like, this is great. And then we all go, which is, we look back and it was somewhat innocent, but we would go to like the hockey games as teenagers, go to the field, drink like a bottle of Fireball, smoke a bunch of weed, and then go to these like adult male hockey games at like 16 years old. Like, I don't know where the thought process was in that. And I understand now why. Like, your parents should be, I don't know. I'm not saying strict, like you said. There's got to be some boundaries, right? Like, okay, you could go out and I know you're drinking, but like, I'm not saying you have to provide it. But at the same time, I think when you cut off that relationship is by being extra strict, they're going to go and do it anyways, right? So I'm not saying you should provide it, but like, maybe just make it easier to steal from your house where you know it's good or know where they're going or picking them up. Like, and that was one thing my mom would always say, like, come pick me up. Like, I never had to worry about that. She didn't like prevent me from drinking, but she would never like be that party mom, right? Like, she wasn't going to be having me throwing the parties and having people drink at her house. She was like, absolutely not. That's extremely irresponsible, and I would not do that. And I agree, and I so respect her for that. I wouldn't be that parent either, even though at the time I'd be like, I'd be that party mom. But like, sorry, some of the party moms are still the party moms and they're in their 60s and partying, or they'd be like in their 30s partying with teenagers, and at the time you thought that was so cool, like, oh, I wish my mom was cool like that. But then you think back now and you're like, nope, nope, not cool for moms to be drinking with teenagers and partying with teenagers,
No, we had a couple of those in my hometown too, and
right?
I thought the same thing. I'm like, "Oh, your mom must love you so much." And now I look at those kids and like they don't have great relationships with their parents. Like
Nope.
that's not where they're at.
No, no. And it's almost like they found a buddy in their addiction as like teenagers and adults, right? It's like, oh, well, and I'm not trying to be that way, but it's like, if you've got a problem, you should be trying to prevent your kids from having a problem. You know what I mean? Like, stop that. And by doing that with them, that's just encouraging your behavior and your addiction. And I've experienced that in my life where it's like, I do smoke weed with my biological dad because I was like, oh, this keeps us closer together. Like, at 16, I shouldn't have to smoke cannabis like with my real dad to have a connection. Like, that's fucking weird. But at the time I was just like, well, it's the way we're hanging out. Like, maybe some people have a beer and we're having this, and now I think back and it's like, I shouldn't have had to do that to connect with someone in my family. But it was kind of normalized too, in the sense that like people just have drinks after work, and it's like, look, no, like, I don't think we should, like, it's teach their own. But when you're going to spend more time drinking after work than being in real life, like, even with weed, I've had to be like, what are you doing? You're escaping, right? Like, I think that's where the boundaries, where you're a parent and you're not connecting to your child because you're doing your drugs and you're out there doing that. I think that's where I'm just like, let's not do that. I wish that, because I feel like we both have that experience, right? Where partying and doing drugs was more important than parenting. And I mean, all good now, but that was hard to grow up with and wrap your head around.
Yeah, and it set a bad precedent for me. Like I got to a point where I was like, "Oh, well, my parents partied, like they're fine. Like I'll be fine. This is just what people do," because I hadn't seen the alternative. And growing up in a small town, I made friends with all the kids who partied and their parents partied, so I was like, "Oh, life is about the party." And it took me a long time to meet people and realize that that's not what life is about.
No. Yeah. Isn't that crazy too that that's and such a shift? And we'll go back to what our social media was like, Hollywood and all that, right? Like, all those movies of your teenage life, and I'll blame the Americas, like sorority life and partying and all those things. And that's what it was to be cool and hot and sexy. And that's like the height of Playboy. And it's like, now I heard that when you go to the bars, obviously I'm too old, but I hear now you go to the bars, like everyone's just on their phone and no one's actually dancing. They're just kind of making fun of the handful of millennials that go dancing. It's like, well, what do you do when you go to the bar? Like, that's what I think social media has ruined interpersonal relationships. But I think for us, they also sold to us that partying and, like you said, being the life of the party was how you're the coolest and how you're a valuable person in society. And it's like, nope.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I grew up with like the OC and things like that where they were getting drunk on the beach, and so that was there. But I agree. I've been to the bars a little bit in the last year, and it is like that. Like the Gen Zs are Snapchatting each other, like vaping in the bathroom, and then there's like the people our age and we're like on the floor like hands in the air, like yeah. And I would rather be that than what it is now.
Oh
And
my
I
God, yeah.
think I think what's going on now with like the hard drugs and stuff and more people having access to hard drugs because it's so common and so talked about is like it's very scary. I'm
Yes.
honestly glad I came before the like fentanyl and all of that.
Yes. And I think one other thing too that's crazy is that more people than ever are on a pharmaceutical at the same time doing recreational drugs. And I don't and that's so good that people are talking about their mental health now and that we are getting on that. But then I also do wonder like many people back in our time weren't and in the early 20s weren't as much my time, I won't speak for maybe yours, is that we're doing as much pharmaceuticals for mental health because it wasn't really talked about and diagnosed back then. But now I feel like most people, and it's a good thing, maybe a bad thing, are doing that. And then they're mixing with drugs and drinking. And then it's like now pharmaceuticals are being sold and all these things in all different areas. That's not something I ever had to think about when I go buy an ecstasy pill in my 20s to think about, oh, this might be fentanyl. Like that's just not anything that I would think about. So like for me, I was smoking weed, drinking, got to my 19, could drink and go party. So started partying in Vancouver. And then we did ecstasy for the first time. And I remember doing E, I think I was 20 years old. I was at a Godsmack concert in Vancouver.
That's
Yeah,
wicked though.
exactly. We're like, okay, huge pyrotechnics, like Vancouver. We're out of town. It was with my best girlfriend Brittany at the same time, my girlfriend Ashley, who I've tattooed on my back, and her boyfriend, and they had done E a few times, and I had known Brittany and Ashley. Like I remember when I was a teenager, and Ashley, I was like 17, and we're at this party, and she came, and she was all fucked up on mushrooms, saying that she went to go home, but then these cows were talking to her. So like Ash had her experience with drugs, and so I felt like, okay, this is my best friend and my best friend's sister and her man. Like I feel safe. We're out of town. Like let's just do a little bit of E. Why not? And I remember sitting in the back of the car singing Umbrella by Rihanna because that was like the hit at the time. And just being in Vancouver, like 19 years old, just living it up. Like, I don't even anyways. And I remember we took it just before and we're sitting there. And I can't tell you the concert, dude. Like, I don't fucking remember. I remember thinking, like, just having a great time. But I just remember sitting there and then Brittany looking over at me and she goes, I don't think it's kicked in. And I was like, really? And then all of a sudden her eyes just went, and then my eyes kind of went, and then all of a sudden the concert happened, and I don't remember much. I remember just felt like I was walking on sunshine. I remember we were just like dancing around like these like tiny little fucking teenage bimbos like in the middle of a Godsmack concert with all these like burly biker guys like in Vancouver just do like how did we not die? Like not from the bikers at the God, but like just being in, and then we would like stay in Vancouver, and that's when it started doing drugs the most. We would leave town and we go to Vancouver and we go to a concert and we would go to the bars there and we would party, and we didn't bring it at home. We kept it away from home because we were a small town. We didn't really want people to know we were doing these like hardcore at the time drugs. And then I remember at the end of the summer we did it home for the first time. We had to move on Labor Day weekend, and in Port Alberni that is like the Salmon Fest, so that's when everybody comes home. It's the weekend before school. It's like the hip party weekend. There's beer gardens, all that. Da 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 da. It sounds very hick. So we decided that we are going to move that weekend, and we didn't want to spend the whole weekend unpacking. So we decided the Friday night, once we got the truck home and everything, that we were going to do a bunch of E and unpack the house. And we got that house unpacked, went to bed, got up the next day, and got to party for the whole weekend.
That is a wild E experience. Godsmack for your first time doing E. I'm a little envious. Like,
Right? I don't remember it, but I remember just being like, this is unreal. Like
I
maybe
bet.
I shouldn't. Maybe I should have had a bad experience because that was like 2 years of like partying every weekend doing E, and that was not good for my liver.
Our poor little livers.
I know, this is why now I won't even take fucking Advil. Definitely not Tylenol. I was like, no, 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 you guys. I had a Tylenol 3 addiction, as well as a teenager. So at the time I'm doing these, I'm also a huge Tylenol 3 addict. At the same time, I'm doing these other drugs. That was kind of
Oh
like
my god.
my bad mixture, right? And that's why now I think like I honestly think that's what aged me when I was young. I think that's why I look younger now because I just don't do that shit anymore. But yeah, after that, then I like calmed down, went to Red Deer, stopped doing drugs, moved to Grand Prairie, just smoked weed, and now once in a while we do Molly. Once in a while when we go to a festival or something like that, or when we were supposed to go to a festival and the pandemic happened, so then we just do it in our house and watch a rave instead because that's all that we can do.
Honestly, though, I do think Molly is one of those drugs that, like, if I was ever gonna do a drug again, I might do Molly. I haven't done hard drugs in eight or 9 years
Good
now
for you.
because I had such a problem with them. But I remember my first like time doing drugs, it was MDMA. And the only reason I did it was because my boyfriend at the time was like, I don't want you doing drugs. That's gross, even though he did drugs. He's like, girls don't do drugs. And I was like, and I believed him until one night he blew me off to go to a Halloween party. And he's like, you can't come. Like, I'm going with other people. And I was like, okay, fine. So I went to my girlfriend's house, and this girl I went to high school with had this little like makeup case, and it was full of MDMA. And she's like, do you want to try some MDMA? And I was like nervous. I was like sweating. I was like, what does it feel like? And she's like, it just feels like you had an extra drink. And I was like, okay. And they put a little line on the counter, and I did it. And I swear to God, in that moment, a light bulb went off. I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I was cooked, man. I was like, it doesn't, I was talking a million miles an hour. I was like, we gotta go dance. We gotta go dance. I'm like, it was October in the Kootenays, like freezing cold, -20. And I was in like little short shorts. I was dressed as a kokanee girl, and I was so overheated. I was like, and the next day, like, this is when I should have clued in to having an addictive personality, because I did like 3 or 4 lines that night. The next day I woke up, I texted my friend, I said, do you want to do M tonight? And she was like, you just tried it. And I was like, I quite literally don't care if it's a Sunday, a Monday, a Tuesday. And I look back on that night and I think like, I'm glad I tried it. Like, I know that I think some people might find that weird to hear, but I am glad I tried drugs, even though I struggled with them, because now as an adult, I have I'm like, I'm too sleepy. Like, if I was up for that long, I would have
No.
a nervous
Oh my
breakdown.
God, no.
Like,
Oh my
I could
God,
not
no.
do it.
No. No, I could not. I could not go back to that. But I'm the same way. I'm so glad I did it. What was funny though is like when I first started, like MDMA wasn't a thing. It was ecstasy. So it was like this like
Mm.
massive concoction of shit. And I remember like, but the one thing about ecstasy I found, and I'm not saying do drugs by any stretch of the length, like to do whatever you want to do.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer, like I don't regret it, but I don't say do it. I didn't feel like I got as much of a hangover if I didn't drink as much. Like I like the idea of just taking a pill because I was addicted to pharmaceuticals, so that for some reason felt safer. Just taking a pill for 8 hours, I'm just having a good time and I'm drinking water. Like when I first started, I would definitely drink because we were partying, going to bars, and I would mix the two, but then I would feel so shitty the next day. And I learned that like just drinking water and smoking weed, I never felt sick the next day. And that's what got dangerous for me because I'm like, oh, now this is like allowing me to party without feeling like shit the next day. Um, and so then I went through my stuff, but then this one time, the last time that I did unfortunately, a lot of my friends had passed away. I think we talked about this, and at the time, it was someone that I was really, really in love with. Actually, have Cody tattooed on my wrist, and we had broken up, and he'd passed away about I think it was like a week after, maybe like 2 weeks after we had broken up. He had passed away, and then we all got together. It was our first friend that had passed away in our group, and we all got together and we were drinking. And this was when I had just started really doing ecstasy and started really doing ecstasy at home. Because, like I said, we would go to Vancouver and we would hang out with people in Vancouver and even like Nanaimo. So it was like on the island, but not Port Alberni. It was like a little bit outside. And then we did it that weekend at home, and it was like, okay, well, now everybody in our friend group is starting to do it, and it's not just us. So then all of our friends started doing it, and that's what everyone was doing. So at the height of that is when Cody passed away, and I remember not even doing it on purpose, but I had taken way too many pills. Like I don't even know how many. Like, and I took them in a pill form. I've never could do anything else. Like, but in my mind, taking a pill was just like taking my Tylenol 3. It didn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't a drug. It was like, I don't know. It's just a weird way that I coped. Weird cope. And I was sick. Like, beyond sick. I remember, when you're about to puke and the heat like hits you. I think I had been like 5 or 6 pills in at this point, and I wasn't even thinking. I was just taking them throughout the day and night because it was just after his funeral, and I just wanted to numb out and have a good time. And so I wasn't consciously taking that much. I was just not thinking. I was like drinking with it, and I walked in the house and I was so sick. I ended up puking for like, I don't know, 8 hours probably. And I was just like, leave me here, like till somebody leaves to go home. Like my friend, I was like, don't let me ruin your night. Like, just leave me here to die because I can't stop puking. And my uncle at the time was RCMP and the drug kind of portion section department. So if I went, it would have been very obvious who had given me the drugs, and I didn't want people to get in trouble. So I kind of just almost died that night. And after that, I was like, I can't do it. Like the thought of it, like the thought of doing actual E makes me sick to my stomach. So fast forward, I just became a drunk after that, whatever. Fast forward to when just before me and Grant were dating, we went to Soundwave, and my girlfriends were going, and Grant and his friends were talking about doing Molly, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know, maybe we'll see. Like, and we weren't together yet, but they were going, and then me and my girlfriends were going, and then now it's like telling the girls, I was like, well, I was maybe thinking about it, and they're like, oh yeah, we have a ton, so you want to do it, and I was like, oh, okay. But at first I was thinking like, oh my god, it's like ecstasy, and my girlfriend's like, it's not. Like MDMA is so much cleaner, it's so much better. Just do like the tiniest amount. We're all going to be doing it. It's like, this is from our friend's boyfriend, like he got it. It's really clean stuff. And I was like, okay. And holy shit, how you thought of when you first tried it, that's the exact thing I thought. Is like, oh my god, this is it. I've solved it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take these little tiny pills every single time I party now. I don't have to drink, and I'm going to have a good time. And that immediately, like, to me, like, luckily Grant was out of his like addict phase too, so, and we didn't party that much. But yeah, man, if I had done MDMA when I was younger, I don't know where I'd be today.
Yeah, I MDMA is like one of those, it is very clean if you can get good stuff. Like it doesn't make you feel, I know that for me like cocaine was like my drug of choice,
Mm.
but it was weird that cocaine was my drug of choice because I only felt good on it. My come downs from coke were like worse than a hangover, and I was such a bitch. Like I was awful to people. I was like, get the fuck out of my way. And like I just kept rolling through cocaine. Like I would do coke. Once I started doing coke, I kind of like pushed MDMA to the side because all my money was going to coke. There was a point where my girlfriends and I were spending like $300 or $400 a night, like pitching in money. And I would wake up the next morning and like do a line and then go to my job at the coffee shop. And I would just be high. I was worked at Mark's Work Warehouse in Fernie, and I used to do blow in the bathroom on my shift. And like just like do blow, sell work boots. I'd be like, yeah, these are great work boots, man. Like they're gonna be so good. These are the best steel toes you've ever had. Like you'll never find steel toes this good again. I literally got fired from that job because my boss walked in and I was ripping lines off the back of the toilet.
I'm sorry, no, it's not funny, but it's funny at the same time, just because of where you are now. If you weren't doing good, I obviously wouldn't be laughing at this, but like,
Oh no, it's funny, dude. One time I was selling this guy steel toes, and I had done like too much blow, and I literally looked him in the eyes, threw up on the floor beside us, and then just kept talking. And he was like I should never have had that job. I ended up not having a job for like a year and like
fair.
living broke and just like that's I think another big thing. Let me know if you agree with this, but as a
Mhm.
girl, oftentimes I didn't have to pay.
Not
So it
usually. And it depended, I guess. I didn't have a spouse when I was in my drug phase, really. I was single. So I guess, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think we paid much, if anything. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's where a thing that can get girls in more trouble is like, yeah, I spent a lot of money on it, but there was most of the time I could go to the bar and be like, can I have? And someone would give me some. So it was more accessible to me than it ever should have been.
Yeah.
I think if I only had done MDMA, I probably wouldn't have had an addiction problem because it was just, it didn't give me that same rush that Coke did. And cocaine is like only, you've never done cocaine, right?
No, not
the
once.
the high from one line lasts 15 minutes.
See, and that's what I'd
So,
heard. So I was just like, apparently I like the ones that you commit for like a decade.
yeah, so for me it was like the problem was is I liked it so much, but I kept having to like hit the thing. And I did blow almost every day for a year straight.
Jeez. And you look
Yeah.
back now and you're like, how did I survive that? Like,
I'm
it just
tired
don't.
just thinking about
I
it.
know. I was like, there's no way we were getting pro. And like, I think for me, one of the moments when I was like, and I was the same, ecstasy or MDMA, it's not something that you're doing something during the week, right? Like you're doing that and you're going to work. Like it's for the weekend, it's your party drug. So like completely agree. Like I feel very blessed in that sense. For me though, I was doing pharmaceuticals during the week. So like, I don't know that my liver was really getting a break. And I wasn't eating much. And that's why it's so funny. It's like, people are like, you're so small. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not eating and doing drugs. Like, the fuck do you think? You know, they're just like, oh, you're so small, you look so great. I'm like, okay, I guess drug addiction looks good on me. I don't know what to say about that, which is really weird. You know, it's like don't comment on that. I'm sick right now. But I remember this one time on the weekend we were partying. It was our hometown, and we're like, let's go to the park. And it was like, I don't know. I would have thought in my mind that it was like 2, 3 in the morning. It definitely wasn't. And the sun came up, and people were walking their dogs, and we still hadn't gone to bed yet. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, oh, I don't I don't like this. Like, I don't like that these people are getting up to start their day at 6 a.m. and I have yet to go to bed. And it's not like I would sleep till noon. Like, I would get up at like 7, 8 in the morning. And I think in that moment, I was like, oh, I don't like this. But I was kind of like in a trajectory where like, I didn't know really how to stop. It was like, well, everyone's partying like this. Everyone's doing that. Like you said, that was the norm. And so it's like you're afraid to give that up because then you're going to be alone. And I don't know about you, but in my early 20s, before like I moved to Alberta and kind of changed my life a little bit, I didn't want to be alone. That was terrifying, to be alone by myself, right? And it's like, no, I feel like I'm more dangerous by myself than doing drugs and partying. And I don't think that's what people understand why a lot of times people go out and party and do all that stuff is because they're too afraid to be alone. And yes, we got to work on that. And that's not an excuse, but I think that was it for me mostly is like, I'm too afraid to be by myself. Like, I don't know what to do with myself.
That was absolutely the same for me. Like, as someone who still sometimes has a bit of a fear of being alone that I'm working through, I feel that, like, yeah, I didn't want to lose all my friends. I was like, oh my God, if I don't go out, I'll be home. I'll be alone. And I didn't want to be alone with my own thoughts because there was things I wasn't facing. So I was like, this is great. Like, I can, one, numb myself out. Two, I don't have to be alone. And I look back on a lot of those friendships and like I'm not friends with most of the people. I was actually more alone in those situations than I ever would have been on my own. And I wish I could just go back and like tell young Darrian, like, you're surrounded by all these people, but girl, you're fucking alone right now. Like,
Yes.
you're more alone than you've ever been because they want to keep you here. And it's funny you said that thing about the mornings because that is a trigger for me now. I call it the guilty birds. Like when you
Oh,
hear the guilty birds chirping, I I hate that. And like now the only time I've ever experienced that is like coming home from a vacation, getting off a plane in the
yeah.
last 5 years, or like going on a road trip. And even still, the little bit of trauma I have from walking home when people were just waking up, I get like, ugh, it makes me feel gross. I'm like, oh, ew.
And it brings me back to, and I feel like I said, it feels so nice to now, like obviously me going into my 40s, and I haven't done this for a long time. Like I stopped partying when I left Red Deer essentially before I moved in with my ex-husband. But I mean, not pharmaceuticals, but like I just remember thinking like this can't be it forever. Like this can't be right. But at the same time, to your point, it's just like I don't want to be alone. I don't want to miss out. Like I didn't have siblings growing up. My mom moved around quite a bit when I was a kid, so I didn't even have childhood friends and I didn't have siblings. So, I felt like I had to cling on to those friendships, even though, and I'm not saying these are bad people by any means. They're fine people now. We're just at the time we were all doing bad things, and that's why we were together, right? We were enabling the bad behavior. It's like your environment. It's like, oh well, if a meth head's going to tell you meth is good, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just because you're getting validation. Like check the validations and the opinions of the people that you're hanging out with. And again, none of these people were bad people. We're just going through that time in our lives where we're all running from shit and not facing it. And now it's just such a contrast when you're seeing all these 20-year-olds like doing fucking Pilates and drinking water and like taking care of themselves and working on mental health. And I was like, we were in the clubs in -20 in little dresses, hammered, no idea what's going on, no perception of time. Water, what is that? We don't know that. Exercise, who is she? She's never in the room with us. Like it's actually mind-boggling. I don't know. I'm sure it's a good thing, but at the same time, it's like you kind of have to have your little bit of a silly, stupid party phase. I feel like just a little bit.
I think you do. And I think the people who maybe don't have that later now.
A
And
hundred percent.
that can be worse. Do it when you're young, when your liver can take it. It's self-detoxing. Like if I did that shit now, I would be hospitalized.
Oh
But
my
back
god.
then, my body was like, you can live off cocaine and McDonald's, girl. Like, don't worry about it. We're good. I don't think I even kept a water bottle on me till I was 25. Like, I'm so grateful I got it done before my body needed me to care for it. And
Yes.
I never feel like I'm missing out. Like
No.
I people will like younger people will be like, "Oh, I did this." And I'm like, "Be careful, but also like I'm not interested in joining you. I've been
Yeah.
there, I've walked in those shoes. My feet are tired." Like
I don't bring a backup. Like I remember not even bringing backup shoes. And then I went through the phase of bringing backup shoes, and now my backup shoes are my main shoes. That's the time of party in my life, right? But like nowadays, like, could you imagine wearing Converses to the fucking club? Like, we would never. I would not be caught dead, not in high heels, not with my hair. And I think it's so great because I think that they learned from us in a sense, right? Just like showing up who you are. I do think they've kind of gone on the scale a little bit where we're in sweatpants to the club. Like that's a little like let's get a little bit, dressy. You don't have to be like an insane amount, but maybe that's pushing it too far. But I do love how they are taking care of themselves and all that because in an extent they're doing a lot of Botox and fillers and those kind of things and overusing, I think, products too, and overconsumption. So they're going to have their things. But I think for the most part, but then I say that, but then I think about all the drugs that they have access to. And like I was saying in the first round that we didn't get on here, the amount of SSRIs or medications for anything nowadays, like that are taken more than when we were kids. Like I said, mental health stuff is definitely far more now. And I just wonder, like, if they do recreational drugs, like the chemical mixing can't be good. And I feel like when we were kids, we just had the street drugs. Like now I feel like, people are messing with street drugs and pharmaceutical drugs, which is a whole other level. I mean, I guess I was doing Tylenol 3. That's a whole other part of the conversation that we haven't talked about.
I didn't, yeah, when I was in high school, like none of the kids in my class were on, not that I know of, or maybe it wasn't as talked about now, because now on social media it's like a badge of honor to have 18 mental illnesses, which drives me actually crazy. And like, I do believe people have mental illness. I have mental illness, but I think now it's like almost like an echo chamber where it's like a contest to see who can collect the most isms. And
Yes,
it's like,
absolutely.
it's
Self-diagnosed.
you don't have to make it your identity. Like it shouldn't be. You are still you.
Yes.
And yeah, like nowadays the amount of kids you talk to in high school who are like, "Oh, I'm on Wellbutrin," or "I'm on Vyvanse," for example, is just, it's tiny meth. It's like little meth. And you can get Vyvanse so easy. Like, to share a little bit of piece of personal information with the listeners who've kind of gotten to know me, I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and the first thing they wanted to put me on, knowing I had substance abuse problems, was Vyvanse. They're like, "Well, let's give you a script of Vyvanse," and I was like, "What other options are there?" So I'm like on a non-stimulant medication, but you can get Vyvanse at 14 years old. So I wonder now if like kids aren't as interested in drugs because they can just go to the doctor and be like, "Well, I need drugs," and that
100%.
now they get them there.
Hmm.
Like, that's awful.
And there's a lot of more kids just doing more pharmaceuticals in general because they're more accessible. Like, people are selling opioids on the streets and like, or even the ones that are like safe supply here in BC, like the dillies or whatever that they're selling. And they're like, oh, well, I'll take this drug because it's a safe like meth. So it's a little bit better. It's like, what is actually happening, especially here in BC with the decriminalization and them essentially just selling crack pipes and like vending machines? Like, it's not working, you guys. Like, as like, I don't know. I feel like there's a side of the population that went much cleaner and they're taking care of themselves, but the ones that are like doing the bad drugs, like they're doing the bad drugs. And I just, to each their own, but I just wonder when you're playing with chemicals so early on in a developing brain, like we tell people not to do recreational drugs. And I can see the moments where I'm like, well, you probably shouldn't have done that much, but then we're okay with kids doing the ones as long as it comes from a doctor. And just being someone that has been on, like, I was, so just like to reverse here, like for those that have listened or not listened, I was given Tylenol 3 at 16. I was having period cramps that were so bad that they put me on Tylenol 3, but you think they could be fucked to ask me what was wrong or like anything about my life? They just put me on Tylenol 3. And I come from an addictive family on both sides. I have alcoholism, I have drug on both sides, myself being like a drug addict. That's what stirred my drug addiction. Like I was doing smoking weed and on Tylenol 3s. And I would be given like 90 at a time. 90 at a time, and I would cruise through those. And my mom would let me just call the doctor because I was an independent girly and I was trying to do things like she wasn't really realizing. And I'd just get my prescription filled and I would just be high on Tylenol 3s and then like drinking on the weekend, smoking weed. And then when I stopped doing that, or that did a little bit of ecstasy and did that, like, what did that do to my brain? On top of being on several different birth control pills, mind you, and several different forms of birth control, like, I just wonder why we're all so messed up now. It's like our bodies were so attacked at such a young age between recreational and like all the hormone disruptors as teenagers that, we're cleaning up now. I don't know. I'm not trying to like, woe was us in our generation, but holy shit, we went through a lot. Like,
I actually am a little bit woe is us in our generation. Like, I actually am envious now that my sister's grown up in a time where, like, I have my beef with social media,
Hmm.
but I also appreciate that there's open conversation. And, like, my sister opted to go off of hormonal birth control way before I did because she was like, dude, I didn't know that it messes with your endocrine system. Like, I didn't know I could get cancer from this. I was diagnosed with cystic breast disease at 17 because I was put on Yaz at 14, and Yaz was recalled. Like, and then I went and did a bunch of other drugs. And so I completely agree with you. I think we were like little pharmaceutical guinea pigs, and we were getting, like, now I think they're way more stingy with T3s.
Yeah,
Like,
oh yeah, with those kind of
and
drugs, like
like
addictive drugs for sure.
I couldn't even get an Ativan at the walk-in clinic when I was having a panic attack last year. Like, they're like, no. And I was given Ativan prescription like 30 at a time when I was in high school. So whether we've learned more or I don't really know. But at the end of the day, what I do know is that I think drugs now are it's more like you're either not doing drugs and you're taking really good care of yourself, or you're doing things that probably have fentanyl. It versus like with us, I feel like it was more blended. Like not many people were doing meth or crack. I didn't know anyone in high school on freaking baby meth Vyvanse, and now like half the kids in high school are like, "Oh, I'm on Vyvanse. I'm on Ritalin." I'm like, that's tiny meth. That's what it is.
Pretty much. And it's like, and I just wonder what that's going to be like later in life, right? And like we've always talked about like medications and stuff as tools. And I think that they're great to have tools. But it's like at the same time, with all this awareness, I just hope at the same time we're giving these kids these prescriptions that we're also giving them the skills that they need to cope with those things, right? And I'm not saying we were given them by any means, but now it's out there more. There's more ways that we can have resources, which I think is great. But then at the same time, it's like, how do you trust everything? But and I'm on here saying, oh, this was so much fun with drugs, but at the same time, it also put me through part of the worst part of my life ever as well. And I guess I just kind of wanted to say too, like we've went through our party phase. I think it's normal for kids to go through their party phase. I almost feel like they should in some degrees where it's safe. Obviously, I'm not saying go out, but now there is more safety, right? This is where I'm not against like having this, quote unquote government weed, is because like now I'm just like, I really appreciate that because I know it's being tested. I know the facilities. I've worked in the facilities. They're not going to be having fentanyl in our facilities. It does make me feel a lot safer. And I know they're trying to do other things with like mushrooms and even MDMA. I know they're trying to find ways to get that to people so it's just cleaner because we'll do it. But at the same time, I think it's like, why do we all have to do drugs? Because
I
we can
think
have fun
part of it is
sober, right? Like, so
I as someone who's recently, like, I love weed. I love weed, but I was smoking way too much weed, and I'm 12 days without weed for the first time in 12 years now.
so proud of
I won't lie to you, I'm not having as much fun.
you.
Like, I'll
That's
just be
fair.
honest with people, I'm not. Like, I've struggled a lot over the last few days with like boredom, lack of it. Like, I'm like, weed was kind of my thing, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't feel motivated when I smoke weed. I was the opposite. I
Yeah.
would like smoke weed and clean my house, smoke weed and hang out with you guys.
Yes.
And now I'm like bored. I'm bored with myself, but I know this is the right thing to do to prove to myself that I can have fun sober. I can be that smart person. And I'm probably not going to cut weed out forever. But
Fair.
this is just like a learning opportunity that I feel like I've never taken. But I think part of it is like the world is so messed up. We're all really trying to escape. I don't really
100%.
care what side of the spectrum you're on. Like, some people hate our side of the spectrum, and we hate other people's side of the spectrum, even though I feel sometimes like we're more willing to listen. Um, but I I think we're all trying to escape like this like soul crushing, like, will it ever get better?
100%. 100%. And I think everyone should have vices. And I do think in a degree, right? But it's like when it takes over your identity, like you said, you're not going to get rid of it forever, but is it going to be more intentional? I just want to be more intentional with it because I've noticed for myself, it's like it's turning into an escape again where I'm just going out and I'm just zoning into whether it's a project or social media, but it's not being used intentionally. And that's what I was supposed to be smoking weed for, is like intention. So I've been trying to like smoke weed differently and all that. And I'm not saying fully sober, but at the same time, I'm just like, well, either I'm going to be on medication for quote unquote anxiety or I'm going to be on weed, one of the two. But I think it's good to have a break and challenge yourself so that you do know for yourself that, especially if you're an addictive person, that you can do it and you can control it. So very proud of you because you're leading with me too. And like also trying to respect that when your friends decide that they want to quit too, right? That, you're respecting that. And that's when you're around your good friends because they'll respect it, not make fun of you or try to get you to go back down to their level, right? And like if anything, it's cool when you can inspire your friends to take a THC break or, redefine what it is to smoke weed or drink or whatever it is that is your poison.
I feel so supported by our friends and like in our group and like I would have one thing about me is like I'm not someone who's like I'm doing this, everybody has to do this. So it's I always feel safe around you guys. So it's like even if you're smoking a joint and I'm not, I still feel safe to be myself. And I think that's a big thing too is like pay attention to how the people you're hanging out with make you feel. If you feel like you have to do drugs around your friends, like those might not be the best friends for you because I don't feel that way in any of my interactions. And I think it's so cool that like our friend Leslie doesn't do anything. She doesn't drink, smoke, none of it. Bree's not really a smoker at all. It was like more you, me, and Eden. And so it's like I still have people who are sober at those things, which makes me feel included. It's not like we're a group who's like, we're gonna party all night long. Like it's just an
Or
open
grandmas.
place to be ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me, it's like even with the weed, like even now I feel like it's far more accepted than it ever was. Like I always felt like the odd one out because everyone was drinking. And I don't relate. Yes, my biological father is a huge stoner, but he's also an alcoholic. And I feel like alcoholism changes you and it completely like can fuck with your life. I just don't have never had anything positive with alcohol in my well, like there's fun times, don't get me wrong, but like I don't know, weed has never brought a super negative to me except for maybe like eating too much snacks and like, having moments of being like, but I think that's just our brains, right? But I think, yeah, it's who you surround yourself with. But I think you can always get sober. And I think that's easy to say, but both of us have been to the edge. Like I was doing shit when I was addicted to Tylenol 3 that I, share for another time. But wasn't who I was. It was the worst version of myself and I hated myself. And now I feel so proud that I don't even think I've taken Advil this year. Advil's the only thing that I will take if I have to. And it's been, fuck, 15 years probably since I've had a Tylenol 3 and any sort of pharmaceutical, I think maybe early 30s, just because it's not good for me. And that's not judging anybody. It was just because I did so much in my 20s and I did so much when I was younger with all this Tylenol and birth control, and it really made me sick. And so I'm really glad now that I've pushed myself to just weed and Advil, and now we're toning back on the weed. But it's to each their own. It's everyone's own individual journey. And if you're having any sort of struggles with any sort of drug addictions, whether that be weed, right now, I could ask for tips, or pharmaceuticals, or like Coke or any of those party drugs, like our DMs are always open, obviously, right? What would you suggest if anybody's kind of struggling with addiction? What would you say to them?
I think the whole thing is like ask yourself why you're doing the drug. Like what are you trying to get away from, because that is usually the thing. And if you can identify that, I find it makes it easier. Like once I realized I was running from myself and running from my past, I was like, okay, like can I face this? And it took me a long time, and I think people always give themselves a hard time when they're trying to get sober, and I would just say like release the shame.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say you tell yourself you're going to go a week maybe without doing a hard drug or smoking weed and you mess up, give yourself grace. Be like, you know what? This is something new for me. It takes time to learn a new skill, and being sober in this society, I think is a skill. I think it's something that you have to really like. I think Leslie is a hero.
I know
She's
she's
just
so good.
raw dogging life
Yes,
and
she
making
is.
it look so good. And I'm trying to do that right now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's too real. It's too real. So, yeah, no, I agree. Like, if you guys are out there struggling, like, DM us, because it does help to have someone to lean on and find non-judgmental people. It's good to have friends who want you to do better, but if they're shaming you for doing it, that's a lack of understanding of addiction on their part. And that's something I can't handle. When someone doesn't understand or hasn't lived an addiction and is belittling someone for their addiction, it's like you have no idea how much pain that is.
Mhm. And just be patient and understanding. And I think, there's got to be levels, right? If you're friends with an addict, or not friends with an addict, if you're with an addict, sometimes it's hard, right? Because you want to support them, but at the same time, you also, it's like, how much are you enabling them to do the bad behaviors, right? So there's always like a fine line of being supportive for someone that's addicted to something and then enabling. I think we just got to make sure that we all set our boundaries, but then that we're here, right? Like, it's an honest conversation. It's your life. You meet your maker at the end of your life, not mine. I know that I can't throw any stones. I got a glass house, so I got no stones to throw here. Okay. But I do know that it's possible. And I do know that the human mind is very powerful, and community and faith and all those things, the basics are so important. So it's like, if you're lost, if you're confused, go back to the basics. And honestly, being sober and alone is so much better than being around people that actually don't give a shit about you and you feel like you're partying and having a good time, because that's just fake. Feel like serotonin, and it's not going to last, and your body's not going to be handling doing that. So like, just really think, like, to your point, what are you doing this for? Is it once in a while and it's for fun, or is it because you're trying to escape your life? And I think once you realize it's to escape your life, then you really need to look at making the changes in your life, and you start with the basics. Start with gratitude, faith, your basics of eating, taking care of yourself, mentally unloading and journaling, those things. And once you start doing that, I don't know about you, but when I stopped and I started looking at myself and my body and health wise, everything else just fell in place to the person I am now. And it's just one step in front of the other. And I think that's it. You just have to take one step, and you might stumble back, keep going forward. I think that is my kind of like advice. Like, just, it's your journey, and it's never linear with everything. It's going to be like this, but just keep trying to do your best, and just don't be a dickhead. I think that's the main takeaway, is like, just don't be a dickhead. Even if you're an addict, don't be a dickhead. Just kidding.
Don't be a dickhead to yourself or others.
Yes.
Just especially yourself. One of my favorite, that my really good friend said this to me once. I was struggling, and he was like, you can't eat an elephant all in one bite. You have to take one bite of the elephant at a time. And I remember thinking, like, yeah. And he was really drunk when he said it. And I was like, you're right, buddy. We can't eat an elephant in one sitting. Like, one bite at a time, man.
Yeah,
and that's all you can do. If the one thing you do that day for yourself is like drink 3 liters of water, like, give yourself praise for that too, because you're gonna positively reinforce. Like, don't focus on the things you did wrong. Focus on the things you did right, and more things will start to go right.
Yeah, and just always adding, right? Like, add things that benefit your life, and then worry about taking away the ones that don't, right? And right now it's like, okay, we'll add some more, if you're feeling alone and that's why you're abusing whatever it is, then maybe find some community and events and stuff like that. Like, get out there and don't be afraid to talk to other people. And there's so many groups out there now on Facebook, on social media, that you can connect with people, even if it's not in your area, online, right? And like, we've got our group, and of course you're always more than willing, right, to reach out. And I think that's just all we see, is that we've seen that our life has drastically improved once we gave up that party life, because that wasn't for us, and we weren't doing it for the right reasons. We were doing it to escape. But facing the darkness brings so much more light into your life that you don't feel like you have to continually use because of that darkness, I think, is what both of our takeaways are for this one. But thank you so much, Dee, for talking to me about this more. I knew that we'd be able to talk about this honestly and great and raw and real, and I hope that you had a good time, and hope to come back.
I did. Thank you for having me on the show. I love you guys.
Okay, thanks guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that shit that I'm supposed to tell you at the end of the episode. Thanks for watching. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I truly appreciate the support. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please follow the Be Real Babe podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. You can also find me at the Be Real Babe podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Until next time, guys. Bye.